All right, so I just arrived in Panama City, Panama, after a long, almost 10-hour, 12-hour flight, something like that. Very jet lagged, but we're going to be driving around and staying here for the next few days. Picked up this rental car, Toyota Forerunner. I'm not sure exactly how to pronounce it, but it's cool because it's not something that exists in North America, and I don't think this exists in the European market, or it's not very common. So it's cool to drive one of these. It's a very nice car. We just did a thorough inspection with the rental car company, but in a country like this car definitely stands out, so we'll see how it goes. But looking forward to driving around a new country and experiencing a new driving experience here. So I'll definitely be sure to capture whatever I find interesting and share it with you in this video. So I've been in Panama for just about a week now. I've been driving around Panama City and the surrounding areas, out to the beaches, around the city, and now here in the Gamboa region. And it's been an interesting past few days driving around from the car culture, from the driving experiences, driving this car, the Toyota Fortuner, which I figured out how to pronounce the name correctly, a diesel 4x4 SUV, which has been awesome to have on these roads. It's a bit hot out right now, so I want to jump into the air conditioning and talk a little bit more about what the past week's been like driving around Panama. So I want to start with the automotive market here in Panama, from what I've noticed over the past few days. Now, I'm driving this Toyota Fortuner rental car that I mentioned, and it's interesting to me as an American because this car, this SUV, doesn't exist in North America, at least in the US and Canadian market, because it's not sold there, because it's based on the Hilux pickup truck, which isn't sold in America and Canada due to the chicken tax. If you don't know about that, look it up. It's actually quite interesting, and it's a reason why a lot of smaller pickup trucks that are available in the rest of world market aren't available in North America. So this Toyota Fortuner is based on the Toyota Hilux, which is a very popular pickup truck. Driving this Fortuner over the past week or so has been really cool. It's a very capable 4x4 off-roader. It's very trucky, so I've never really driven a body-on-frame SUV before, and it's very truck feeling. So it's great for the bumpy roads, which I'll get into in a minute. But it's definitely, you feel, all of those vibrations through the frame. So I kind of understand what I've heard a little bit about, body-on-frame SUVs and these pickup truck-based SUVs. They are definitely riding a little bit different than the car-based SUVs that we see that are quite popular. So going back to the car market here in Panama, what's been interesting to me as an American who's familiar with the US automotive market and now living in Europe, and I'm now familiar with, let's say, rest of world spec vehicles like the Hilux, like other cars that are not available in North America, I should say. It's been interesting to see that in Panama, it's a mix of both. So you have US market cars. I've seen Honda Odyssey, Chevrolet Tahoes, anything that is available in the US market, either imported here in a gray market fashion or maybe sold here originally. I'm not sure, to be honest. But it's been a mix of those types of cars, as well as, let's say, rest of world spec cars and emerging market cars. So Kia Picantos, Toyota Hilux, Suzuki's, which we don't have anymore in the US. So it's been really interesting to see that mix and see that distinction of something like a Tahoe parked next to a Hilux. You wouldn't really see that anywhere else, except for these types of markets where these sort of vehicles exist from both the American market and maybe things that are sold normally here. So that's been really interesting to me, but really cool to see that distinction. And thinking about the roads here, SUVs are quite popular. And, things like the Fortuner, the Toyota Prado, Land Cruisers, seen a lot of different SUVs, very capable 4x4 off-roader SUVs, which honestly, if I lived here, I would probably drive one of those as well. It's been great to have that here. I know I'm not a big fan of SUVs, but these are the types of roads and areas that you need 4x4 and high clearance vehicles. So it's definitely worth it to have an SUV here. You see a lot of the smaller cars quite beat up because of the road conditions, because of the driving itself as well. But it's nice to have an SUV, quite a capable off-roader SUV. Also, what's interesting that I've noticed in the cars here, and you can kind of see it in this Fortuner, but it's hard to see in the video probably, is there's a lot of tint. This front windshield is tinted, and it's quite a deep tint actually. I don't really need sunglasses to drive it during the day, which is nice for the sunny weather. I'm not sure if they do it here for the heat, for the sun, or for privacy, or a combination thereof. Let me know in the comments below if you know. But it's been very difficult to drive this at night because of this deep tint. It's very difficult to see out. But on the daytime looking in, you really have a lot of privacy and a lot of protection from the sun, which is nice. But I've noticed a lot of vehicles here have really, really deep tint and even deep tinted front windshields, which you don't really see in Europe because you're not allowed to tint the front windows past a certain percentage. Definitely not allowed to tint the windshield. And in North America, you're definitely not allowed to tint the windshield as well. So seeing a tinted windshield and driving around one, especially at night, I would not recommend it. This rental car has it, and I've seen a lot of cars with it as well. One other interesting thing that I've seen while I've been here is American school buses decked out. So these are like party buses. Some of them are actually used as public transportation buses, but old, what we would call yellow American school buses. Some of them are yellow, some of them aren't. You can see some examples here, but these have been decked out with lights, with sound, with, big exhausts, and they're speeding around Panama City as party buses. You see them in the outskirts as well. I find it so hilarious. So if you ever wonder where American school buses go, clearly it's here in Panama and they're getting pimped out. Cool. So pimped out school buses and pimped out cars. Pretty cool to see here in Panama. Something else that I found interesting with the license plate situation here in Panama. So most vehicles only have a rear license plate, no front license plate. And typical to North and South America and even some of the Caribbean islands is the, let's say, the US style license plate size. So the smaller license plate size that you can see, that's been interesting to see because the front of the vehicle has a spot for a front license plate. And I've seen a lot of vehicles driving around with this kind of gaping hole in the front, which looks kind of funny because most markets where these vehicles are sold require a front license plate. But apparently Panama doesn't, so no need for a front license plate. So that's been interesting for me to see that here. So I can't do a video about driving in Panama without talking about driving in Panama. So if you know me, you know I like a challenge. I just talked about this in my Italy vlog video where, I talked about some of those roads were quite challenging, but I liked the challenge. I like embracing the challenge and really putting myself up there and, getting through that. And driving in Panama has been no different. It's a bit chaotic, unstructured, bad roads, huge potholes. It's nice to have an SUV, as I mentioned, so you have that higher ground clearance and you can take on a little bit bigger bumps. Also, having a bigger vehicle in the heavy and chaotic traffic here, it kind of is helpful because you can kind of push your way and, size rules in these types of driving situations. So having a bigger vehicle, you have to assert a little bit more dominance. But, typical to what I've mentioned in other videos, you have to have a bit more of an aggressive driving style when you come to these places and drive. And if you can do that and kind of be comfortable in the chaos, which personally I'm quite comfortable with, it's not so bad. I actually find it a little bit easier than Europe in some cases because even though I have a bigger vehicle, the roads are quite wide and it's quite easy to drive, but it's been a challenge I've been willing to embrace. I wouldn't recommend it for the faint of heart. Again, I think most of the American friends that I'm traveling with think that the driving is a bit crazy, and it is. You have to pay a lot of attention. But, like I said, I embrace those challenges and I found it quite doable. I've also driven in Trinidad before, and Trinidad is a similar type of driving style. So again, you have to be a little bit more aggressive. Having a bigger vehicle helps, but I would not recommend it if you're not used to driving in these types of conditions. It's definitely not for the faint of heart and for the highly skilled, I would say. The last quick thing I'll say is the road sign situation here has been really interesting. So as I've mentioned, either I've already done this video on European road signs or it's coming up still, so stay tuned for that. But the road sign situation here has been a mix of what I would call North American style signs and European or rest of world style signs. So like the speed limits, for example, in the red circles, some other symbols also are similar to rest of world. But then there's some unique signs like no parking has an E with the slash through it because estacionamiento is parking in Spanish. So that's a bit different. But then there's also some more North American style signs like the yellow diamond signs that you would see. So it's been an interesting mix here. So now I'm paying a little bit more attention to that, and I'll be sure to cover that in more detail in my separate video. So that's been really it. Those are the key highlights I've noticed about driving in Panama over the past few days. It's been an amazing trip, beautiful country, amazing food, awesome people. I'd highly recommend it. The Panama Canal, seeing a vehicle carrier going through the Panama Canal was such a cool experience. I would definitely recommend visiting Panama. Don't drive here if you're not up for the challenge, but if you're like me and like that challenge, it's been an awesome driving trip as well. So I'll wrap it up there. Let me know what you think in the comments below. If you've driven in Panama or these types of Caribbean countries where, you know, the driving is a bit crazy, the car culture is different. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And until the next time, thanks so much for watching. Watching this, you know that I like a challenge, and there is a giant iguana. Holy shit. I'm filming this. There is an iguana over here that I just saw moving. That's pretty cool.